The hotel room smelled faintly of cigarette smoke and stale air conditioning. Outside, the city, a Southeast Asian hub where gleaming skyscrapers overlooked crowded alleys, pulsed with the sound of mopeds and market chatter. Inside, a man in his 40s sat rigidly on a vinyl chair, his hands resting on a black leather satchel. Two plainclothes officers, both wearing the casual uniform of off-duty tourists, leaned across a chipped wooden desk. They spoke softly, their words almost lost under the hum of the air unit. "Let's see it," one said. The man slid the satchel forward. The zipper's sound was sharp in the quiet. Out came neat bundles, each bound with a paper strip printed $10,000. The bills were flawless, the portrait of Benjamin Franklin crisp, the watermark exact, the color-shifting ink gleaming under the lamplight. One officer pulled a random note and flexed it between his fingers. The texture was perfect, that distinctive blend of cotton and linen, rougher than ordinary paper. He tilted it, watching the ink shift from green to black. Under ultraviolet light, the embedded strip glowed correctly. And yet, they were fake. Every last one. Later, in a secure facility, U.S. forensic analysts would confirm what the agents already suspected. The bills were part of an ongoing stream of Supernotes, counterfeits so precise that even trained professionals could mistake them for the real thing. And once again, the trail led back to the same elusive source, the secretive apparatus of the North Korean state. Counterfeiting isn't new. History is littered with tales of wartime printing presses churning out enemy currency in hopes of triggering inflation and economic chaos. But the Supernotes were different. Emerging in the late 1980s, they represented a leap beyond the amateurish forgeries that security services were accustomed to intercepting. Their precision suggested access not only to top-tier printing technology, but also to the specialized paper, inks, and engraving skills usually reserved for sovereign mints. A former senior U.S. investigator once put it plainly, "If I'm in a dimly lit bar and you hand me a Supernote, I might spend it without a second thought." They're that good. From Europe to Southeast Asia, Supernotes slipped quietly into circulation. Casinos, cash-intensive businesses, and black market exchanges became unwitting laundering grounds. Each seizure revealed a troubling truth. Someone somewhere had mastered the art of manufacturing America's most secure banknote and was doing it on an industrial scale. To understand why North Korea might risk such a brazen operation, you have to understand its economic reality. By the late 1970s, Pyongyang's centrally planned economy was faltering. Once roughly on par with South Korea in per capita output, the North had fallen behind as the South embraced export-driven industrialization. The collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, a key trading partner and source of subsidies, was catastrophic. Fuel imports dried up, factories stalled, and famine gripped the countryside. In this environment, hard currency US dollars, euros, yen became essential. These were the lifeblood for purchasing oil, machinery, and luxury goods for the elite. But North Korea had little to export legitimately that the world wanted, and sanctions further narrowed its options. Enter Office 39, often referred to as Room 39. Room 39 operates from a nondescript government building in Pyongyang, its name derived from the office number where it was reportedly founded in the late 1970s. Officially, it doesn't exist. Unofficially, it is one of the most important organs of the state. Defectors and foreign intelligence assessments agree, Room 39 generates foreign currency through both legitimate businesses and illicit ventures. The legitimate side includes mining exports, seafood sales, and overseas labor contracts. The illicit side has been alleged to include narcotics trafficking, counterfeit pharmaceuticals, arms sales, and high-quality currency counterfeiting. Room 39's mandate is clear: feed the regime's treasury, keep the leadership insulated from the economic hardship that ordinary citizens endure, and bypass the constraints of international sanctions. The Supernote program fit perfectly into this mission. Accounts from defectors suggest that Supernote production took place in a heavily guarded facility, the Pyeongseong Trademark Printing Factory, about 30 kilometers north of Pyongyang. Security was extreme. Armed guards manned each entrance, identification checks were constant, and workers were confined to the premises during production runs. Windows were sealed, and movement between rooms required multiple authorizations. The machinery wasn't the kind used to print propaganda leaflets or school textbooks. These were specialized intaglio presses, the same kind used by sovereign mints to produce banknotes with raised ink textures that resist photocopying. Then there was the paper, a cotton-linen blend containing tiny colored fibers, almost identical to the U.S. Bureau of Engraving and Printing stock. North Korea, lacking domestic sources, is believed to have acquired it through foreign suppliers using front companies. The color-shifting ink, a critical security feature on modern $100 bills, was reportedly smuggled in the same way. Many workers, according to defectors, were told they were producing foreign trade bonds or test currency. Only the highest-level technicians knew they were engaged in counterfeiting. The deception, coupled with tight surveillance, ensured loyalty or at least silence. One former printing technician, now living abroad, recounted how the work consumed his life. "We would stay inside for weeks," he said. "The gates were locked. Guards watched us even when we slept. They fed us well, but we couldn't speak freely." Mistakes carried heavy consequences. A misaligned print run or an error in numbering could be deemed sabotage. That was a political crime, the defector explained, lowering his voice. And political crimes, you don't come back from them. For some, the job was a privilege: better food, secure housing, relative protection from the chaos outside. But it came at the cost of constant fear. It was a good job, the defector admitted, if you could forget what you were making. Printing money is one thing, spending it without detection is another. Here, North Korea's status as a sovereign state gave it a unique advantage: diplomatic immunity. Under the Vienna Convention, diplomatic pouches cannot be opened by customs officials. According to intelligence reports, these pouches, sometimes large shipping containers, carried bundles of supernotes to embassies in Asia, the Middle East, and Africa. From there, the currency could be sold to intermediaries, often at a steep discount. Casinos in Macau and other gambling hubs became prime laundering venues. High-volume cash transactions, combined with the mingling of legitimate and counterfeit notes, made detection difficult. In other cases, supernotes were exchanged in bulk on black markets in countries with weak financial oversight, eventually finding their way into the global banking system. By the early 2000s, the scale of the operation had drawn serious attention from the U.S. Secret Service, which has jurisdiction over currency counterfeiting. Working alongside Treasury Department officials and allied intelligence agencies, they mapped the flows of supernotes, coordinated seizures, and traced patterns in distribution. One major breakthrough came in 2005 when the U.S. designated Banco Delta Asia, a small Macau-based bank, as a primary money laundering concern. The accusation: the bank was handling millions in illicit North Korean funds, including proceeds from counterfeiting. The move sent shockwaves through the banking world. Other institutions quickly severed ties with Pyongyang to avoid similar sanctions. For a regime reliant on offshore accounts, the message was clear: the world's financial gatekeepers were watching. Alongside financial pressure came a technological countermeasure: the redesign of the U.S. $100 bill in 2013. The new note included a 3D security ribbon, micro-optics that create moving images when tilted, and more sophisticated color-shifting inks. These changes didn't make counterfeiting impossible, but they did raise the cost and complexity. Producing a convincing fake now required not just high-end printing presses, but also access to cutting-edge microprinting and optical technology, tools far harder to procure and conceal. Since 2013, seizures of supernotes have declined sharply. Some experts believe the program has been mothballed, either because the new note proved too difficult to replicate or because the diplomatic cost became too high. Others suspect the capability still exists, ready to be reactivated if needed. A senior European investigator summed it up: when you've built the ability to print money at that level, you don't just throw it away. It's an asset. It's a weapon. And weapons get reused. Counterfeit currency isn't just a financial crime, it's a form of economic warfare. In North Korea's case, it served multiple purposes, earning hard currency, undermining confidence in the US dollar, and projecting the regime's ability to hit back against economic sanctions in its own way. Even with fewer reports of supernotes in circulation, the legacy remains. Financial institutions remain wary, and the case is studied in law enforcement academies as an example of state-sponsored counterfeiting at its most advanced. Back in that Southeast Asian hotel room, the seized bundles were eventually sealed in evidence bags and flown to a secure lab. The courier was questioned, though whether he truly knew who his ultimate suppliers were remains unclear. Somewhere far away, behind guarded gates and drawn curtains, presses may still sit idle, their steel rollers polished and ready. Perhaps they'll never run again. Or perhaps, when the political calculus shifts, the dark press will roar back to life. For now, the supernote is a ghost, a reminder that in the shadowy overlap of crime and statecraft, even a piece of paper can be a weapon.